Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And there's been an industrial tribunal that has resulted in an extraordinary result. It has overturned years of legislation effectively by saying that it's no longer an offence for a man to expose himself in public. Previously, if I, as a man, was to run into a ladies' changing room, expose myself and run out again, that would be seen as a crime. But according to this tribunal, not only is it not a crime, but anyone who complains is now guilty of a hate crime. This is extraordinary. But it's only a quick video, so I'm just going to glean over the essentials of the case. But I think this needs to go further than some industrial tribunal, and will probably need an appeal in a higher court, and possibly all the way up to the Supreme Court, because this surely cannot be allowed to stand, that you have a get-out clause for perverts who like exposing themselves effectively. Anyway, here's the article. Let's have a look, see what you think. So here it is, and of course it's a trans. It always is. Anyway, trans NHS worker wins discrimination case after being, quote, embarrassed by his boss confronting him over concerns from staff that he was naked from the waist down in shared changing rooms. It should be pointed out in this case that he, the man in question, who pretends and wants to be a woman, still has the meat and two veg. His manager asked if he wore underwear at work or in general. It came after concern he was naked from the waist down in changing rooms. The transgender woman, i.e. man, worked at the Northern General Hospital in Sheffield. He also found an offensive note in his locker and overheard colleagues' abuse. And it came after staff were told he would be using a female changing room. So we've got a man, like I say, he's still got all the bits attached, all the ghoulies, and the old todger, it's all still there. And he decides that as he's now a woman in his mind, he's going to strip off from the waist down in a woman's changing room and expose himself. This was previously a crime. Indecent exposure would get you nicked, get you up in front of the beak, and either a fine or even a short stretch, which I suppose is what a lot of them were looking for. Anyway, a transgender NHS worker has won the discrimination case against the health service after being left embarrassed when his boss confronted him over concerns that he was naked from the waist down. We've covered this. The transgender woman was also left crying and shaking at work after he was told in a note left in his locker to get out, you tranny freak. Probably by a woman who was offended by having a naked man in her presence when she was trying to change. I could understand it. Certainly if it was my mother or sister or wife, I wouldn't want a naked man in their changing room. Anyway, the abuse came after staff at the hospital were informed in a memo, rather than by anyone actually having the, quote, balls to go around and tell them face to face, that a transgender woman, i.e. a mentally ill man, would be joining and using female changing rooms and exposing his lady penis. The male-born employee, why not just say the male employee, who was transitioning to be a woman at the time, i.e. undergoing a mental breakdown because of his inability to deal with who he is, also overheard female colleagues say, I'm sick to death of this bloke with a lady penis pretending to be a woman. Everyone's sick of it. I mean, I know there's 0.01% of the population that aren't sick of it, but the very vast majority of are. Co-workers even said that that thing may are me. This is true. Now, this was said at the employment tribunal, but actually this is true. This is absolutely true. Because there's been many, many cases of this. So to say that you're concerned about it is perfectly reasonable. Now the employee, whose identity cannot be revealed for legal reasons, and possibly because he does not know his identity, because he's mental, has successfully sued Sheffield Teaching Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust for gender reassignment discrimination. Oh my God. The Employment Tribunal in Leeds heard he started work in a non-medical job in the summer of 2020 based within a unit at the Northern General Hospital, which is part of the trust. Because he had been transitioning, had been out of work and suffered emotional issues, i.e. was not just mentally ill with his gender dysphoria, but also was mentally ill with anxiety. The sort of thing that really needs to be attended to with a psychiatric help rather than being pushed into doing a job. Hey. The trust, which gives staff equality and diversity training, well, it doesn't give him diversity training. He hasn't been taught about the diversity of thought. That's for sure. Encouraged workers to be respectful to him. However, soon after joining, he suffered abuse. Well, you see, he makes choices, and choices have consequences. You make those choices, you live with the consequences. In July 2020, he was left in tears over an incident. A tribunal report said there is no dispute that at about 7 a.m. he found a note that had been posted into his locker in the ladies' changing room that said, "Get out, you tranny freak." I would suggest that there was a dispute, because unless you find someone who'll admit to putting it in, it's entirely possible that he put it in the hope of engendering sympathy or in the use of making allegations later. At lunchtime the same day, he suffered deeply offensive and unacceptable abuse again while he was in a cubicle in the changing room and overheard two female colleagues speaking outside the cubicle. One said, "I'm sick to death of this bloke with a D pretending to be a woman who doesn't even dress like a girl and has facial hair. That thing may harm me, and we can drive it out of the department and maybe find a suitable leper colony for it." This is a view held by a lot of people because genuinely this thing happens, as we've discussed. People are hard by men who pretend to be women. And there is a case in America where a female prisoner has now got cases of multiple pregnancy in a state where the A cannot happen. So you've got a man going into a woman's prison, R-ing them, impregnating them, and then they are forced by law to carry his children. It's almost as though you're letting the the Rists, choose the mother of their children, because you're giving them a smorgasbord to choose from. Here's a man in prison, he's in for R, but now he's a lady, so you put him in with all these other women, and then he R's several of them and gets them pregnant in a state where there is no AB. Well done, America. You've got such a great system. But getting back to this one. In August 2020, the trans man, woman, they, again found a note in his locker saying, "Get out, tranny," which I always had as a radio. Anyway, the authors of the notes and the women who made the offensive comments were never identified, so it's impossible to say whether these things were actually said. And however, the trust admitted all three incidents happened. How can they admit something happened if they cannot prove it happened? They can prove and admit that allegations of it have been said, but there's no proof that it happened. Anyway, in June 2021, the man was left embarrassed when he was questioned by his manager about whether he wore underwear. Concluding employment judge Sarah Jane Davis ruled a female manager quizzed him because he is transgender. Judge Davis said a concern about his state of undress in the changing room was likely to be connected with the fact that he is a transgender woman-man. This was a communal changing room with a shower cubicle. It did not seem to the tribunal likely there would have been a concern about a cisgender woman in a state of undress while changing in such a changing room. Yeah, what they actually mean by communal changing room is a changing room for women and men who pretend to be women. This is what the actual meaning is. But when the man who's pretending to be a woman is getting out the old man and the todgers and the boys and swinging them about, and don't forget this is a man with a beard still, so he's not really pretending to be a woman too hard. This is little more than sexual gratification by someone who likes flashing himself at women. And certainly the trust should not have been held responsible if they've got no proof that it actually happened. And we can go on from there. I'm not going to go on. It's a load of old rubbish. But we'll come up and we'll have a look at the ramifications of this. See, it does have ramifications, because what this judgment now says is, as a man, you can walk into a ladies' changing room, have a bit of open the front door exposure, and they can't complain. You can get your jollies. Woohoo, look at this, ladies. Like I say, they can't complain, because if they complain, you can then sue them for hate speech and that sort of thing. And you don't really have to go down too far down the line to claim to be a woman, because this one still had all the bits attached, had a beard, didn't dress as a woman. So it was merely a woman in, oh, I'm conveniently calling myself a woman so that I can expose myself. It's a great defence, but it shouldn't exist. And it is a joke, and it should never have come up, because even though the hospital admitted it, they go, oh yes, it happened. Well, no, it didn't happen, because you can't say if it happened or not. All you can say is he claimed it happened, and you've agreed, okay, for an easy life we'll let it happen. Probably because you're going along with the agenda. But in actual fact, until you can actually say who did it and discipline the people who did it, there is no case to answer. The hospital didn't do it, so the hospital isn't liable, or shouldn't be liable. It's the individuals who did it. So why did he sue the hospital rather than suing the individuals? Because he knows he can't. Because it probably never happened. But anyway, I shall leave that with you. You can all judge for yourself. This is what happens when you allow men into women's areas. Now, imagine, if you will, that it's your wife, your mother, your sister, or your daughter, or your niece. Things like that. And in comes that hairy-ass man and whips himself out. Have a look at that, ladies. And you daren't even complain. What a world. Anyway, I shall leave that wonderful, wonderful picture with you in your minds. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Ring the bell for notifications of future output. Leave a like, leave a comment, and until next time, stay safe, stay well. Don't let your women go into changing rooms on their own. And goodbye.